You're listening to the NCF&B Podcast. The North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast takes you behind the scenes of North Carolina's food and beverage industry. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at NCFB Pod, presented by Food Scene. That's foodseen.com, providing professional photography, social media management, video production, and website design. And now, enjoy the show.
Thank you for listening to the NCF&B podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And we are in downtown Raleigh today, on the outskirts of downtown Raleigh, at the home of one rock star cellist that you know well from North Carolina's own Avett brother, and a foodie himself, Mr. Joe Kwon.
Well, hello.
We're welcome. Happy to be here.
Welcome to my house.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, my first question is, did Louis Cherry design this house?
No. This house was actually designed by Raleigh Architecture Company.
Yeah, know them well.
Yep.
They helped out design Standard Foods, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They did, indeed.
They do some cool work, and this house is, I think the whole podcast is just going to be about your house.
Let's do it. I got a lot of things to say.
I bet.
Well, for one, you chose downtown Raleigh. You're not you are essentially in the heart of it. You're just a few blocks away from, right in the business district of the whole thing. And
4 blocks, yeah. Easy 7 to 8 minute walk at my pace, which is fast.
That's how you walk off all the food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that impetus, just to say Raleigh's going to be my home? I mean, you obviously challenged. We know a little bit of your backstory, but just immediately.
Sure. The reason that we actually ended up moving to Raleigh was for one reason and one reason alone. And then it became many reasons that we stayed. But my wife was at NC State getting her PhD, and at the time we were living in Durham, North Carolina. And the commute, as you know, from Durham to Raleigh is a short commute, but it can take a long time.
Yeah, at the wrong hours, it sucks.
At the wrong hours. And if you're a PhD student, you're going at the wrong hours. And she came to me one day and was like, I can't do this drive anymore. And we made the move. The way that we actually got this piece of property was really funny too, because Robbie Johnston of Raleigh Architecture Company lives 1 block behind us. He lives on Edenton Street, and he is friends with Scott Avett from high school.
Oh wow!
And so Scott introduced us, and we got to talking, and we were like, I want to build a house maybe, because I didn't want to buy an old house and renovate it. I wanted to just build something from the ground up and have it be our own. And my wife was fighting me on it a lot, because she's a climate change scientist. And she was like, the greenest house is the house that you don't build. So.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so she was like, it's got to really have a lot of things in it that makes it a greener house if we're going to do this. And I signed on. I was like, all right, that's cool. Let's do this. And we ended up looking on tax records in Raleigh on the maps, on iMaps. You can look it up, just by going to the internet and looking up tax records of who owns these pieces of empty property in downtown, because Robbie lived right behind, a block away. I was like, oh, this is kind of a cool area. We clicked on a little plat, and I was like, okay, well, let's just start calling people. And we just cold called, a dozen or so people, and we got this piece of property just out of chance. Yeah.
That's cool. So this was built from the ground up.
Ground up, yeah, designed with Raleigh Architecture Company, and
per your spec, essentially, or
yeah. The funny thing is the way that they do, we're doing things. They interview you. And they are kind of asking, like, well, what's important to you,
They Match.com you onto your house?
Yeah, they match you onto a house design. So they interview you as to what's important about a house. And my wife and I like to entertain a lot, and that was what the house was built to kind of nourish, was the idea that we're going to have a lot of people in here all the time. And we do have several people here. We have a Google Calendar that has pretty much vacancies of our guest bedroom because my wife is she's up at Harvard, and so she commutes between Raleigh and Cambridge.
Oh wow!
And then I'm on tour all the time, so
Sure.
we have a house sitting Google Calendar that says, "Hey, we're gone these days. Will you come and hang out?
Water our plants.
Water the plants."
Yeah.
I don't
Tend to
see
the
any
wine
pets
thing.
around, so
Yeah, well, we had a pet, and he passed away this year, and so that was kind of one of the big things too. Was he was old? He was 15.
That didn't happen on someone else's time here.
No.
You imagine?
Yeah, that would
would
have
not
been
be good.
awful. But it was.
Welcome back, Joe. About your dog.
Yeah. So it was one of the things that many people had to deal with was our very geriatric dog who, towards the end of his life was struggling with his bodily functions and whatnot.
he
But
pooped all over the floor
He
in
did.
your beautiful
He
house.
did.
Oh well.
Well, let's get into let's know a little bit more about Joe as you kind of came up before you made your way into the beautiful state of North Carolina, considering that's what we
Sure.
kind of go from. Now, I believe you started your path and your life in California. Is that correct?
No. In fact, I was born in Korea.
I don't know shit.
Yeah.
Just let me handle the backstory.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so moved to High Point, North Carolina when I was 1 year old, and lived in High Point from 1981 to 1995 when I went to private boarding school in California, which is where the California
Now
thing
we're
is.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm from there. That's why I'm making all that
Yeah,
reference.
yeah.
Think of everything California centric.
Yeah, nothing existed before that.
That's right. Yeah. So, 90. I think it was 95. I went to private boarding school in California at Idlewild Arts Academy to study to be a classical cellist. My cello teacher in High Point was like, he's done all he can in this area. He needs to go to a place that he's going to be challenged. And
Yeah.
And that would have been at what age? Like,
I was 15 then.
Okay.
High school years, essentially.
High school.
right?
Yeah. It was my junior and senior years, which I think is 15. Is it 16?
yeah,
that might be
somewhere around
16.
there, 16, 17.
96
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I moved to California then, and then came back to North Carolina after graduating.
Yeah, so just to take that back for a second, so your mom basically woke you up from a nap and said you're going to get cello lessons?
She didn't tell me anything, just like a good Korean mother. She just said, "Get in the car." And
that probably sounds a lot worse in Korean.
Yeah. Well, she's probably selling me on something like, "Hey, we're gonna go somewhere." I'm like, "Okay, cool."
Why the cellist? Was it in your family or?
No, nobody in my family played the cello. My mom played piano. My dad was a choir conductor.
Oh, okay. So
and a
there's
minister. There's music
there's
in the
musical
family.
people.
Yeah.
They're like, we need a low mid-range baritone instrument to fill out our family band. So
I don't even know I don't know how they found out about my cello teacher or why they chose cello of all instruments. I had no interest in the cello before I turned 9. I didn't know what it was.
Were you playing any other instruments at the time?
No, my mom tried to teach me piano when I was 3.
Okay.
That didn't go so well.
What was the reason that your parents moved to North Carolina? Were they in the furniture business?
No. So I would not know this if it were not for my wife, who the day after we got married, and bless my beautiful wife's heart because she puts up with this kind of thing, but the day after we got married, we went on a family trip. And we're talking...
Wait. Like you're supposed to be on your honeymoon but instead your wife went with your parents.
With my parents
Wow,
and my
saintly.
sisters.
that sounds awful.
Exactly. I mean, it was a great trip, and it was for good reasons. My dad was sick, and we moved up our wedding because my dad was sick, and this was a time that we were going to be able to do this. So the day after the wedding, and she was stuck in the back seat of my aunt's RAV4 or whatever the car was between my mom and my aunt while they're eating, Korean food, and my wife gets very car sick. She's back there like, I'm gonna be sick. Bless her heart. I feel so bad about that. But
Your wife is not Korean.
she's not. Yeah. So somehow I forget how we got to this point.
Well, you were telling us about why your parents came to this country.
Yeah. So she, unbeknownst to her, these are questions you don't ask your parents in Korea. It's just like, the past is the past. You leave it
you live
alone.
in the present.
It's a very Korean mindset to just, it is what it is. What difference does it make? And that you don't really ask questions. And so my wife, unbeknownst to her, she just starts asking my mom questions while my mom's cooking dinner down at the beach, and my mom totally opened up about it, and told us the whole story, and it was about having more opportunities for the kids, and because things in Korea were more or less a little bit it's kind of pay to play there at the time, and they're like, we don't want to do that, and we want merit to carry you forward, not money. Yeah. And so they moved us to Archdale, North Carolina, which is a very small suburb of High Point, a very small city in North Carolina.
And was there a job waiting for them there?
So my aunt was living there already.
Okay.
So they moved over because of a program in the 70s. This is something I learned from that conversation with my wife and my mom, that brought over professionals from different countries. So my uncle was a doctor, a family medicine doctor, and so they brought in professionals to small town America from out of the country, which is a pretty cool program.
To be a general practitioner.
To be a general practitioner, yeah. And my aunt was living there, and she said, this is a really great place, Archdale, North Carolina. She was one of maybe one or two Asian people, her and her husband, and then her kids. But she was like, there's a lot of land. There's
a lot of agriculture.
There's agriculture. You can grow your own vegetables here, and it was just a great opportunity. And
every time they had a child, there was a boom in the Asian population.
Exactly. Man, we tripled. We moved to Archdale, North Carolina, which I don't know if you know where Archdale is, but it's...
Well, I know where High Point is.
Right, so it's to the east of High Point.
Okay.
But you won't know when you've crossed into Archdale.
Yeah, but it's funny, like, you're mentioning High Point like it's this metropolis or something. Like, this is the big town. And it's a pretty good town now. Like, Matt and I just went through there recently, and there's some decent stuff.
It's just known because of the furniture market, yeah.
Well, that's how it was first known. Globally, it was known for the furniture market, but then it's more recently known because of High Point University.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
what's the deal with High Point University? What's going on there?
This wealthy business person came in and revitalized High Point University and turned it into this very attractive university for folks. It's a private university.
Liberal arts?
I believe so.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know anything about school. I just read something about it and
Well, let's get a little bit more into why we're here talking to you, because even though we're music fans and Max is a musician himself, there's a food connector here. So Absolutely. Just to cut a little forward in your story, you came back to North Carolina, got a degree, and ended up working for IBM. Mm-hmm. And we can get into that as much as you want.
As most food-centric people do.
Totally.
Yeah. Obviously, as I've heard you talk about it before, food was a big part of your family growing up, and it's a big part of your culture. But you did work some jobs in the culinary industry.
Sure.
Because at some point, I guess, it wasn't the food that connected you, but the music that connected you. And then you said, well, to pay for my habit of music, I have to get a job, and you got a job in the industry, right?
Yeah. It was the fact that I felt like I was giving up on music totally by being at IBM, and it was painful for me to do that job. And on the weekends, I was still playing music. I was playing music with a band that I was with at the time called Big Pretty and the Red Rockets in Chapel Hill. I was working in Charlotte and driving back on the weekends, or during a weeknight even, and just driving in the middle of the night to get back and forth from work. Terrible IBM employee. And I just missed it too much, and that's what drove me towards realizing that I wanted to get back into music. That and the fact that I don't know what you would call it, and IBM was getting moved over, and they gave me the option of taking a severance or being replaced in a different department. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore anyways. Yeah. Let me just go,
Talk about a sign.
Yeah, and it made so much sense at the time, and it was a terribly frightening decision to make, because I was making an income, and
Right.
then I wasn't making an income. But I had to pick up shifts, waiting tables at Spanky's in Chapel Hill. God,
I don't think that place exists anymore.
It doesn't, sadly. Yeah, it's really unfortunate that that happened. And I was picking up shifts with the catering company out of Chapel Hill as well. And at Spanky's is where I actually met my wife, because she was a hostess there, and while I was bartending there. Yeah, and that's just how it all happened. I worked at Vin Rouge for Matt Kelly, still friends with him.
Wait, did you work with Mr. Mallard?
Michael
Mallard?
Oh, yeah.
So he was just a recent guest on the show. And
oh, really?
he's now like officially taking over all of Giorgio's restaurants and then almost all of Matt Kelly's restaurants. I think all but maybe Mother and Sons.
Yeah.
I think because they got a lockdown over there themselves. But basically he's doing it all. But he's always been such a cool guy.
Oh, man. Yeah,
to
yeah,
us
yeah.
and in the industry as
Oh, I
well.
love him. Yeah, love him to pieces.
Yeah.
When I got hired, Matt Kelly hired me, and I think I was the only employee that Matt Kelly ever hired that was front of house. And Michael was like, "What? Who? What? Why'd you hire him?" And Matt said, "He had a nice smile."
Did he ask you any weird questions while you were?
God, I don't know. I was such an idiot back then.
There was a segment on Michael Mallard's episode where I had to reveal, I was slated to be the opening general manager for St. James recently.
Okay.
But we were kidding that, like, the last question Matt Kelly asked was, "How would you clean this table?" And I just was like, "Wait, what?" And Mallard's like, I just laughed watching you stumble and fumble for an actual legitimate answer, because everything else was very polished.
Sure.
And then this just made you super nervous. And I guess in the end that was probably Matt Kelly's
Messing with you.
yeah, like I want to watch this guy squirm. Like just ask him something, anything just to throw him off. And so yeah, I'm like, get a towel, I guess, and some disinfectant.
I think he was looking for the answer of however you would like me to clean this table, chef.
That might have been it, yeah.
Or I think you'd be like, I don't know, I fucking clean the table. Like just
The way you clean
just be like,
tables.
why you asking me that? That would have been awesome. You'd be like, what are you getting at?
How would you clean it?
Yeah.
That makes-
How would you let me clean the table? I don't know.
I'm having dinner with Matt tonight.
Oh, and I just came from
Tell
a
him to
meeting
say
with
hi.
Michael Mallard, so there you go.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. So the reason that we bring up the whole bartending issues, because I believe the story goes, and I know we're moving ahead, but
Oh, yeah.
you were bartending when the bassist of the Avett Brothers came in after he saw you at a show?
It was close. I was bartending and playing shows with the band. At that point, the name of the band had changed to Bus, because Big Pretty was an actual individual in the band.
Okay. Big Pretty was his name?
Yeah, was his name. He
a
ended
good
up
name.
he ended up moving out of town, so we had to change the
What
name
was
of
he in the
band.
band, Big Pretty?
So he was a true starting freshman at Michigan. So he was a massive dude.
Okay.
Starting
Football.
football, okay.
And he played guitar and wrote songs.
Nice.
And that's his name was Big Pretty, obviously, because, well, back then when we met, his name is Jake Freisinger. When we met him, he was playing with a cellist named Lindsay Riley, who I played cello with at UNC.
Oh, wow.
Small world. But Jake was big, and Lindsay was pretty, so Big Pretty was the name of their
Nice.
band. And then we joined forces all together to join Big Pretty and the Red Rockets. I mean, the Red Rocket was a old bicycle from their the two of the members' childhood that grew up together in Big Pretty and the Red Rocket.
So then you do meet Bob. Is that right?
Yeah. So going back to the story, we were playing in Winston-Salem at a place called Rubber Soul, and I don't know if this place is still around or not, but it's a dive. It's definitely off the beaten path. There's, you got to know to go there. It's not a place that's frequented. But we were playing there the same night that the Avett Brothers are playing Ribfest in Winston-Salem, and we walked down to the festival because we saw in the I don't know what the local paper is, but it's like the Independent, but it might have been the Independent.
Sure.
Saw that they were playing down at the big square in Winston-Salem, whatever. We went down there, saw him playing. We had heard about him before through a MySpace invitation.
Sweet.
Found out about the Avett Brothers through MySpace.
Wait, this is like 2005. There was still MySpace back then?
Oh, yeah. MySpace
was
for a
the
while.
big stuff.
That
in
was the big
2000.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but...
Facebook wasn't around yet.
Yeah.
Really?
Facebook. I joined Facebook in 07.
Yeah.
In 07?
Mm-hmm. And I was like new.
Yeah.
I was one of the first guys to do
I
it.
thought MySpace was like still like 2000, 1999. No, Facebook was still around in 05.
It was early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and we later found out that Dane Honeycutt, the tour manager for the Avett Brothers, actually sent that MySpace invitation. So Dane is the one who's responsible for allowing us to know what the Avett Brothers were.
So in your perspective at that time, they had already released a couple of albums, and they'd also just kind of done some things like back when they were more of a rock band.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd been fairly established in this music scene to you. Is that fair to say?
I didn't know anything about them except as the Avett Brothers, just via like talk on indolence from MySpace. That was the only knowledge of them I had.
Sure.
Which is why when we saw them in the little newspaper, we were like, we should go check them out. That song's really cool. They sound like a lot of fun. We went down to this festival, and it was like a massive festival. You could easily have jumped over the like 3-foot high guardrails, or pay the $5 that it cost to get in, and it was. I was a struggling musician, bartending to, like we can stand right here for free or right there for $5.
Right. Oh, you've heard it here first. Joe Kwon, super cheap.
Super cheap. So we ended up watching him, and I was like, that's pretty freaking awesome. And we had to go back and play our set at Rubber Soul. And that was back when we were playing like 3-hour sets till 2 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And maybe longer than 3 hours, 2 sets, And towards the end of the set, Bob walked in to Rubber Soul.
Because you saw him from the stage while you were playing?
The bar was the size of this living room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he walked in with some friends of his from Winston-Salem. And Leon, my buddy who's the guitar player and bass at the time, and I was like, that's bass player from the Avett Brothers. He whispered over at me, and I was like, that's pretty awesome,
Yeah.
And we just finished out our set, and afterwards Bob came up and he was like, man, you guys are doing some really cool stuff. I'm working on a side project. It really would be fun if you guys would work on this side project with me. And
nice.
that's how I met the guy.
Because let's be honest, like cello is not the first instrument you think of when you're talking rock or you're talking even folk. Like, I mean, whatever.
No.
I mean, it
should be.
Well, you do a good job of making it sound great and fit in the whole spectrum of sound. It's
not traditional.
The lack of not a lot of cellists around for one. And,
yeah.
I used to play with a cellist in Los Angeles. It was a duet. It was she sang and played. Hope Easton, if you're listening, Hope, what's up? And I would play guitar and piano. And she's
very cool.
Pretty good.
Big Pretty was a cello and a guitarist.
Yeah.
They're around.
Yeah.
By the way, cellists have great names. Big Pretty, Hope Easton, Joe Kwon. Those sound like cello and
Joe Kwon's like the least of the cool names.
Ben Soli's not that cool.
Ben Soli's a pretty awesome name.
I only make a joke because you recently just played with him. We'll get to that at some point. But no, that's funny. But if you have this upbringing of playing cello, one thing's like, okay, so you're playing classical music. It's a classical influence always, and I assume that would be maybe the cornerstone or the foundation of learning the instrument.
Yeah.
But it seemed like you've always had a little edge that you wanted to play something a little bit more different?
That came in like 2000.
Okay, so you were just like straight.
I was straight classical.
Reading sheet music.
I was gonna be. Yeah, I went to high school and I thought I was gonna be a classical cellist. I thought I was a big shot cellist. I had like the ego of someone who was already a professional cellist at the time.
Sweet.
And I thought for sure I was gonna be a classical cellist.
Yeah.
No doubt. Which is also why I am not a classical cellist, because I had no idea the level of performance that true soloists have until I was introduced to them, at a fairly early age. I think I was 15. So, okay, this makes sense. I was 15 when I attended my first classical music festival. And I thought I was really good at 15. And everyone in High Point, North Carolina, was telling me I was really good. I went to this music festival, Eastern Music Festival. It's in Greensboro at Guilford College. And, world-class musicians come to this festival. It's a maybe 6 to 8 week long music festival. Yeah, it's a long festival. It's a long festival. Classical festivals are generally that way because you work up pieces and perform them, and then you work up another piece and you perform. There's concerts constantly. And I met these musicians who were my age or maybe a couple years older than me. And I could not fathom how well they were playing.
Yeah.
And it really opened my eyes like, oh, I am nothing. But yet I still had the ego of someone who was way better than them. But that is when I started to realize, like, this is gonna be really tough.
So did you start, like, getting to that next level of understanding? Like, did you say, like, that didn't freak you out? You're like, okay, well, I know the road I gotta hoe, and I'm going down that path.
I thought I could get that good.
Yeah.
I truly did. I was like, they've just been playing longer than me. That was my mentality, know. Yeah. And maybe I could have gotten that good, but the difference between me and them was work ethic.
Exactly.
It did not exist with me because I was from High Point, North Carolina, and I was already playing, first chair in Greensboro Symphony Youth Orchestra, which I was like, that's hot shit,
Yeah.
That ain't shit.
That's Matt moved to Los Angeles as well, and moving out there, most people that were the best actor in their town, in a small town, were like, I'm pretty good at what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a famous actor.
Sure.
And so they moved to LA to try to do whatever, or they might just be super good looking, right?
Right.
And so everyone's saying, like, you're the best looking person.
That was mine.
Right.
That's what I was
obviously.
thinking.
Yeah. Matt was the hottest guy in Long Island for his age, for his time. But then he moved
in my room of my house in my life.
Sure.
But I love it. I mean, sadly, my story didn't end the same way your story ends. But I had that same.
Well, now you're a famous podcaster.
Oh yeah, playing the guitar on the intro song.
That's right.
If you hear the intro music, that was all me, man.
Good job.
By the way, I just want to say it because you won't, but a cello would sound great on that intro song.
Oh yeah, there you go.
If that ever happens,
the stars align.
If the stars align, we could get Joe on the cello. That would be awesome. Maybe for another conversation, that would be sweet. But I had the audacity to think that I was going to be really fucking good.
Oh yeah.
And I was really good for the first year that I started playing guitar. Like, I took to it really fast.
Yeah.
And then I just thought, well, I'm pretty badass.
Yeah.
Let me move to LA and be a rock star.
Yeah. When you're a kid, that's really easy to see.
Yeah. And then it just never. It was that. I think I just met pot at one point. I met my friend
infamous
Marijuana, and then
Mary Jane.
It was just like, I'm pretty good at these 60, 90 chords I know, and those are the only chords
I need to know more.
And that was it, man. And then I just whatever. Then I waited tables.
Yeah. No, that's mine was not the introduction to marijuana. Mine was purely ego. Like it really was purely ego.
Yeah, but so talk to us about that for a second because you are accomplished regardless if you're not a classical
purely
cellist.
by luck.
Well, hey, you got to be in the right place and you got to be active to create your own luck.
Sure.
So Ben says to you, hey, you want to do a side project, so that side project is working with him, and then how does that work out? So they eventually ask you in the band.
Bob, yeah. So
what did I say?
You said Ben.
Oh, Bob.
Probably because I said Ben Soley earlier.
Ben Soley has never asked me to work on. That's not true. We've talked about working on something cool together. So Bob was working on this side project, and we ended up recording some tracks with Bob. It was the accordion player from our band, Ingrid Stenzel, and Leon Godwin, who is the guy who is responsible for me playing non-classical music. Leon's responsible for that. But we played a wedding with that band, New Jersey Transient, which was Bob's side project, and we're just kind of having fun. It was a fun thing to do. It was something cool for us because I was like, this guy's a real musician, and we're working with him. It was really neat, driving to Greenville, North Carolina when he was living there at the time, and having rehearsals, and then I guess
he probably had some cool gear because he had a little money because they recorded some albums.
It was before any of that even.
Okay.
Yeah, this was still, this was 6 years into the Avett Brothers, so they were starting to definitely get the recognition. It was coming. It was very much imminent. And then the New Jersey Transient ended up opening for the Avett Brothers in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And at that concert, as I walked off stage, Scott and Seth. This is how I see it in my head. It probably did not happen this way. But Scott and Seth approached me and were like, we're working on an album right now. It'd be awesome if you'd come in and play some cello for us. Because from the story that I was told, Bob was already saying, I've been playing cello, in this band with this cello player, and we need a cellist. Why don't you just call him? And they were reluctant to say yes until they saw the opening thing. That's how I've been told this story. I don't know if that's true or not, because I don't think I was anything special for that side project. But yeah, at that point, of course I said yes, and went and recorded on Emotionalism with them. So that's how it all started.
And was that originally... Were you slated to be on stage with them, or you were just supposed to be a recording
I was
musician?
just going to record some. Yeah.
But then your good
I
looks...
was the only cello player they knew.
So, hey,
selection process was easy.
You know what? I mean, in any sales conference I've gone to, one of the best pieces of advice that I've gotten, that 50% of the job is showing up and being there. So, but then again, if you sucked and you weren't good, you wouldn't still be there. So
that's true.
Give yourself some credit. Don't beat yourself up so much.
Yeah, I mean, were they yelling at you in the recording session like, "Geez, I wish this guy knew how to play cello"?
Yeah,
not at all.
Yeah,
exactly. So that much at least you had.
Yeah, I had that.
But then it's funny, and so like in reference to anybody that has watched Judd Apatow's show that just recently came out on HBO, May It Last, A Portrait of the Avett Brothers, and of course Judd Apatow is a huge music fan. And, he's done Freaks and Geeks, A 40-Year-Old Virgin, and...
so many things. Yeah.
Whatever. He's done a million things. And I just saw this. I mean, I just saw the show just pop up on HBO one time. It was like, wait, what? Oh, wait, what? This is going on?
Yeah.
And I see it, and I love you get your own chapter. There's a moment where it's kind of focused around you. And I love, I mean, you're showing it right now, this humble side of just being a part of something that's... Well, I'd like to think is pretty great. The band is fantastic, and it's great, too, because it just also, like, what we love doing is talking about how great North Carolina is. And I think the Avett Brothers really show, like, the musicality side of North Carolina and really bring a lot to life about what this state is all about.
Sure, yeah.
And so, but I do love the humble side of when you're being interviewed, and it's kind of the Joe Kwon chapter. I like to look at it. You're like, well, I was there, and I was playing, and then I just, like... Essentially, like what I gathered of it was, I needed to kind of validate why I was there, so I also started doing other things for the band and helping out with social media and helping out with cooking and doing all the things you were good at to just kind of stick around.
To secure a position in this company, yes, that's exactly what happened, and that's not me being humble. That was like me, like I'm grasping for straws at this point in my life. I'm like, I don't have a real job. I'm bartending. Yeah. And I'm going to do anything I can to make sure.
Leaving. Right. I want to be on that train.
I got to make sure I'm on this train. And it was as simple as I sat down with my computer, ran my budget, and I was like, oh my God, I got to make $500 a week to break even. I'm like, I'm not even going to factor in groceries because I know I can go over to my sister's house or go over to my mom's house and eat. Like, I know they're going to feed me. So this was me like, I got to break even on bills. I had a house at the time, Yeah.
Joe, can you hold that thought for 1 second?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're just going to talk about what you might have been serving at a bar it wouldn't have been in those days, but now what you could find in a bar all around North Carolina is Social House Vodka.
Oh, nice transition, Matt. Yeah, Social House Vodka, one of our fantastic sponsors, coming out of Kinston. It's made from the Black Creek Aquifer, and it's 100% gluten-free. And
Kwon is coming also from right there in Kinston, North Carolina.
It's great.
Well.
Yeah, it's all local. It's real easy. Joe, have you ever had some
I
Social
see
House?
a bottle up there.
I have a bottle up there. I've got 2 bottles that are marinating in some ginger and orange peels behind my stairs.
Voila.
Boom. Well, then that's a nice endorsement right there.
Yeah. So, all right, now back. So you were telling us how you were going to keep it together, and you're eating. You needed to make $500 a week, basically.
Yeah, and that was it. I went to Scott set them up. I said, guys, if I'm going to do this, I need to be making $500 a week, which that was a big ask. I was afraid to even ask that.
Yeah. In hindsight, it doesn't sound like much, but at the time.
Yeah, at the time,
Sure.
I'm like, God, that's a lot of money, you know. And I told them, I was like, I really just like playing. I enjoy performing, but the problem is I need to be able to pay for the house that's back at home.
And is this, just setting this up, you've already recorded Emotionalism with them, so you're you're a performer on the record, but then also they want you on the tour to go. So you're basically negotiating the type of money you might get paid while being on tour.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So after I recorded, I'll back up. They, we recorded the album. It was fun. Months later, this was like New Year's Eve, December 30th, 2006. December 30th, 2006. This was maybe even a week before that. I get a call from Bob. It's like, hey, Joe, we're playing at Lincoln Theater on the 30th, and Scott and Seth were wondering if you'd play those songs live, because he knew I lived in Durham. Yeah. And of course, I'm like, fuck yeah, man. Yeah, of course. Yes, you know, and
I got to work the bar that night.
yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was gonna happen, you know, obviously. Yeah. And I got done playing, and I didn't have any New Year's plans on the 30th because I was like, well, I don't really have the money to go do anything. So I was like, hey, do you think it's possible that I could come to your New Year's show at the Neighborhood Theater in Charlotte tomorrow? And Scott, I remember he said, only if you play with us.
Nice.
And I said, well, oh, yeah, okay, if that's what I have to do, clearly, you know. And I played, so those 2 shows were my first shows with the Avett Brothers.
Oh, wow.
As a cellist for the Avett Brothers. Months go by, the album is going to release, and this, I've told this story so many times, but it is just so, like, perfect how this worked out. But I was bartending on Tuesday night. For some reason, I'm like, it was a Tuesday. The worst night to bartend in Chapel Hill.
Sure.
And I was getting off work. It was probably 2 in the morning, maybe 2:30 on a slow night. And I had made like maybe $50 in tips that night. Mm-hmm. It was wretched, you know.
You need 10 Tuesdays to get that
exactly.
$500 week.
And I was struggling. You know, I was walking back to my car, and I was like, man, there's no way I can keep this up. Like, I got to figure something else out. And I'm, like, totally down on myself and, like, in a dark place. And there was a no cell phone policy at Spanky's. You know, we couldn't have it on. So I'm, like, walking back. I turned my phone on. Just sitting in my car, just like thinking, like, what am I doing? Like, why did I leave IBM? You know.
Yeah.
And it was
your Motorola flip phone.
There was a Nokia, the little one that was like this big, and I just hear the like bleeping noise. Then it says like 3 voicemails or whatever. I started listening to the voicemails, and one of the voicemails was Bob saying, like, Joe, we were hoping that maybe you would come on tour with us full time and just join us on the road. And that night, really, like the worst night when I was questioning all my decisions, like that was the night that voicemail came in. Wow. It was so perfect, you know, in my head. I'm like, and I threw my hands up in my car.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I was like, yes, you know, like, I obviously didn't call Bob back at 2 a.m, but the next day I called him back. I was like, absolutely, whatever you need.
Yeah.
I will do whatever you need me to do. And I got a piece of paper when I first joined the band that had like some lines drawn on it and like things that are done. It was like, you'll be responsible for these things, And that list was conservative, to say the least, because I would just be like, well, I'll do that. No, I'll do that too. No, I can take care of that. Sure. No, I'll do that. And I would
Are you saying like when it started, they were like, we're going to need you to...
Oh, I was playing on like 3 songs a show.
Right. But so aside from that, like you got to do some work to help.
Yeah.
While on tour.
If you're going to come on the road with us, like, you're going to have to do some other things. But like, it was like maybe...
What's an example of a thing that you had to do?
Book hotel rooms.
Okay.
Like, you're going to have to book the hotel rooms for us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, great. I'm awesome with computers.
Yeah.
I
worked at IBM.
Yeah.
I have a degree in computer science, and
that qualifies me to surf the internet
totally.
on hotels.com.
I'm a professional internet surfer, and that was like one of my jobs. Another job was this list grew over the years, over the months, I will say. It was like restring Seth's guitars after every show, loading and unloading.
Mild guitar tech, if you will. Yeah.
Loading and unloading, setting up the drums. I had to run sound cables for, on stage, whatever it was. I didn't care. I was like,
that was fun.
If I don't know how to do it, trust me, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
That's just how it was.
So now fast forward to this. You're basically asking for a raise, I guess, or you're asking for money to be on.
Oh, I didn't even know how much I was making at that point, but it was inconsistent enough where I was like, well, I need to at least make this much. And I remember them being like, okay, we're going to have to talk about that, and that may have been when I got the list of things that I was going to do.
Sure.
But I don't remember the chronology of all of that. And I was probably making more than that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
You needed it consistently.
Right, but I just needed it to be consistent.
Sure.
And at that time, we were playing like 150 shows a year. Like, that was a lot of shows.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say is I think a good negotiator wouldn't probably start with, I need $500 a week.
Yeah.
Like, it's, what are you going to pay me a week? And then they might say, we were thinking $750 a week. You're like, I'm going to have to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, I guess I'll do it.
I would never have done that. Yeah.
He's like, I need
because you were just happy to be there, and now
I was
you're
happy
on
to be
tour.
performing. I was happy to be playing cello.
Yeah.
Like.
So now, because we want to get into a little food too, but before we jump to the next kind of segment of the whole show, I do want to know, now you've been with the band for a few years now, for 15 years roughly.
12,
is it
2006?
12
years.
12 years, yeah. So, and if you watch even just the before mentioned Judd Apatow documentary, it's it seems like the brothers tend to kind of work on the creative side, like the songwriting side, kind of on their own. They kind of do their thing, and then there's the recording session, and you guys all come in, and then I imagine there's more collaboration, and you're probably composing your own parts to accompany the tones of what they've done. But are there parts of songs, or even songs in general, where you've had some writing credit, or what you've added to?
Yes. You're sitting in the studio and the ideas are in Scott and Seth's heads,
mm-hmm.
and in terms of thematic ideas or whatever that might be, and so they'll just sing something or give you a visual,
mm-hmm.
in Scott's case, they might give you a visual of what he wants it to sound like. Seth is more specific as to what he wants something to sound like, and I would just kind of internalize that and be like, well, something like this, It's like, no, maybe some, less off the strings, more, more on the strings, less notes or more notes or whatever, and you just
mm-hmm.
kind of craft it that way.
Yeah.
That being said, every album is different,
mm-hmm.
because as artists they're growing, as artists I'm growing. what I think might be the right thing will change throughout the years, and so the live performance now a lot of times will dictate what happens on the album, because some songs get introduced to the public before they're ever recorded.
Yeah.
So we'll say, well, if we play it this way live, let's try to record it that way. That's working.
Yeah.
Let's not try to fix it.
That moment of what is it? I Wish I Was, and they're like they're singing it before they had performed, like they performed it live, and then they're talking about it later. That's like, for me, that's the most beautiful part of the entire.
It's a really
film.
it's a really truncated view into how the creative process works, for sure.
It was amazing because
I agree. I think
you
it was
really
really
see
beautiful.
I mean, that's kudos to Judd Apatow for great filmmaking, but also for letting the brothers letting them totally expose themselves, because he's got Scott had an idea, or no, Seth had an idea for the song, and then Scott's like, maybe the lyric would be better this, and then as they're discussing it, it fades to them performing it live before they ever recorded it
at
anywhere.
Madison Square Garden.
At Madison Square Garden, and people are just sopping up every word that they're singing, and then it just ends. It's just like, that's songwriting. That's that's just beautiful in general.
Yeah, and that's also the kind of the magic of television.
Right, because it didn't exactly happen like that.
It didn't happen that quickly.
Of course. But you get that idea. So so one of the other jobs, and let's get into a little flipping burgers and squeezing some hot dogs, some mustard on dogs. One of the other jobs that you kind of alluded to while you were on the road is that you were kind of the road chef in a way.
Yeah.
You cooked a little, and you still cook.
Yeah.
So elaborate on that, and this is what we want to know. We want to talk about food on the road and how you were involved being on the road with the Avett brothers.
Sure.
What you're doing.
Sure. I like to think I'm responsible for introducing cuisine that's not just for sustenance. I don't know how to
enlighten them a little bit?
Say that without sounding like I'm a dick.
Were they a meat and potatoes type of band before you came along?
No, it wasn't even that. It was. I mean, it was really about getting the nutrients that they need to put on a show.
Oh.
Like the nutrients that are needed to have a well-balanced diet, with disregard to how well something might be seasoned. Mm-hmm. Whereas,
you're not asking them how their stool was the night before,
right? No,
we're gonna get more fiber in the diet.
Yeah. But it's I'm gonna be bouncing around on stage for 3 hours.
Yeah,
I need some food in me so I have energy.
And for me,
I'll take a scoop of peanut butter.
Food's always been this part of me that is it represented. In my life growing up, it represented the family. It was the time that I had with my family. I didn't realize it as a young person that I was eating really well. As a kid, you just eat what your parents give you. I was a really fat kid, which obviously was because I was being fed really well and eating a lot of whatever I was being fed.
And all of love meant food.
Exactly. So to me, my mother's love and my grandmother's love was them feeding me.
Eat something.
So food was
like an old Korean mother, because I feel that way about my kids.
Totally.
I'm only happy when I see my kids eat.
Yeah. The amount of food that was put on the table for me growing up was, I will say it rivals any families. My mom and my grandmother. I grew up with my grandmother. My grandmother was practically a saint. If she doesn't have a sainthood, we're not Catholic, but she should be a saint, because she would just ask me, from the moment that I got up, what do you want for breakfast? Well, do you want some fish in that or not? Because Korean food's very different from American dining. We'd have stews for breakfast. We'd have, salted fish and rice, or all the savory things that came out. And I'd just be like, I want kimchi stew, with pork belly in it, please. And
she'd be so happy to make it.
And she'd be so happy to make it.
I want kimchi stew with pork belly right now.
Yeah, and that's how I grew up eating. So to me, this whole concept of food being important was not just important, but it was their representation of what love looked like. You know? They wanted to nourish you. They wanted to make you happy. And my mother is the same way, you know. She still does that. Like, I'll be like, hey, Mom, I'm going to come to Chapel Hill and have dinner. So I go, okay, cool. What do you want? What do you want to eat? You know, and I'll throw out something like freaking out of nowhere. Oh, I want jjajangmyeon, you know, which is like a black bean noodle dish. She'd be like, okay, I got to go to the grocery store, but yeah, we can have that. Sounds good. And like, she'll go to like 3 grocery stores to make me that dish still, you know, or I'll be like, Mom, I can't make it to Chapel Hill. Do you think maybe you can come to Raleigh? You know, and she'll do it, you know, because that's how she is still.
Yeah.
But there's no
I think
end.
we both have moms that are like that too. Like
totally.
they'll do whatever. They're awesome.
No end to the amount of love that goes into the food making.
Yeah.
So then now you're on the road and you're looking at, like, Scott's looking a little pale over there, and he's like not good for the last set of the album or the set. And you're like, bro, we got to get some Brussels sprouts in your diet, man.
Yeah, I don't even think it was.
How does it? Are you actually cooking though on tour?
Those were mostly post show. Like I'd be like, oh, I got this great guacamole recipe that my sister brought back from Mexico when I was like 12, you know, or
sure.
I must have been that young, you know, and she went on this really amazing trip in Mexico, and she brought back like recipes for like pico de gallo and guacamole and like different kinds of tacos, and this is food that I wasn't ever exposed to as a young kid in a Korean
unique
home.
To you, yeah.
Yeah, and so I you know, it's like, what is cilantro?
Yeah.
You know, like this tastes like soap. This is really weird.
Yeah.
But I was one of the early lovers of cilantro. And so I had these like weird recipes, and guacamole is easy to make. You can get all the ingredients from any grocery store and anywhere in America. It's just kind of the weird thing. But so I would just be like, post show is always a moment for us to get our calories back in our bodies because you're always hungry. Be like, I'm gonna make some guacamole, and so I'd make guacamole, or I'd make microwave nachos, you know, like whatever the random fatty calorie full food was. I would just make them.
Like backstage? Or you go to the hotel? Or you go to...
it would be on the bus.
On the bus?
Yeah.
So you have cooking facilities on the bus?
Microwave.
A microwave. Hey?
Oh, yeah.
That's a cooking apparatus.
Yeah, but I mean, guacamole doesn't require anything except a knife.
Right. So
make some ceviche out there without anything.
Oh, no. Not daring enough yet. I don't want to get anyone sick.
So, but then you started a food blog.
Yeah.
About being on tour.
Yeah. And that came out of my necessity to, like, I felt guilty eating really nice food. I still do feel guilty when I go out to have these very lavish meals, you know, at, you know, Crawford and Son or, you know, at Farrington House. I just feel there's a part of me that's like, you know, like I'm spending a couple $100 on this meal. That's ridiculous. From a guy who had to make $500 a month. You know, like I still remember that. I'm like, this is a little excessive, and my way of kind of reconciling that within myself was to be like, this is the food that people get to eat.
Yeah.
And this is haute cuisine. You know, this is stuff that, from my perspective, this is an art. Like me playing the cello is an art. You know, this is a crafted.
Someone buying a ticket to an Avett Brothers concert as opposed to just listening to their uncle play guitar.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a performance. And that was my way of saying, I do realize how ridiculous this is, but I want to share this with you because I do realize that most people will not be able to eat like this. Yeah. You know? And that was why I started it, was just to kind of showcase amazing food across the country. I haven't updated it in probably 3 years, mostly because back when I started the blog, we were playing in the middles of towns. You know? Yeah. Now you play sheds and they're 20 minutes outside of town. You know, so it's hard for me to get into town, introduce myself to a chef, and just have conversations with them. And but I've considered now changing the format of it and it more celebrating the actual people who produce the food or the chefs themselves.
Or here's an idea. you could just tell us on the NCF&B podcast, and it's a verbal blog, which a podcast essentially is, and tell us, hey, Joe, where are you on tour this week? And you tell us about that chef and what you ate on that stuff.
There you go. That's a great idea.
Sidebar really quick. It seems to me like being Korean is a lot like being Jewish. You have mothers who want to make you fat. You have a lot of self-doubt, some guilt, frugality.
Super ego.
Yeah, super ego.
Super egos.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities there.
I agree.
And the salted fish thing for breakfast is also, so.
Koreish?
Koreish.
Jurian?
Jurian. Yeah.
This is a good break to talk about wine.
We just Joe just poured you some wine, and perfect segment to talk about Triangle Wine Company and their 3 locations: Cary, Morrisville, and Southern Pines. These guys do it all. They have all your needs from beer, wine, obviously champagne, but they're everywhere. They're nice, they're knowledgeable, they're online, and they have great selection and great prices as well.
Yeah, Triangle Wine Company is cool because they have an online system, so if you live anywhere in those 3 regions or pretty close out, I mean, talking to Chris, he's like, just tell us where you're at, we'll come to you. But you can buy all your wine online and they'll deliver it to your house, which is super cool and really convenient. And they pretty much go and get whatever you need. So if they don't have it on the shop, then you just email them. They're like, we'll get it, we got you.
Yeah, and soon to be opening up in my neck of the woods, Holly Springs.
There you go.
All right.
So it's cool, and yes, it's like a little plug and all, but these companies help pay our bills, and we love what they do because they really help us out, and then they do help the community because they're good businesses. So support local business like Triangle Wine Company and Social House Vodka and all things like that.
Well, not only that, but they bring parts of the world that we'll never see otherwise to this area. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
They bring wines in, and wines are great expressions of place.
That's right.
Like, every time.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great addition.
Yeah.
What's funny is on a previous show and on a previous moment in all of our lives, we were all in Chicago egging on our good friend AC.
AC, yeah.
We're looking right here on your coffee table, and you got the Pool's cookbook just displayed proudly, and we all have one in our house displayed proudly. Yeah. And we were there in Chicago, and it was just so cool. By the way, kudos to your outfit.
Oh, thanks.
I think you had the braids going. You had a 10-gallon hat.
I think I crushed it.
You kind of crushed it.
I didn't crush it.
We're going to have to find pictures and post
our stylist for the band crushed it. Yeah.
That's pretty cool, though. You were styling. But that was cool to see.
So, Max, context, what were we doing in Chicago?
Yeah, so in Chicago, it was the James Beard Awards, the 2018 James Beard Awards. And if anyone listens to our show, they'll know that we went there. We were the only podcast allowed to be media for the whole show. Yeah, like for the whole nation. So we're setting the stage. We went to the James Beard Awards. Of course, Ashley Christensen, probably the most notable chef of Raleigh and North Carolina, and even she rivals being the most notable chef in the Southeast and in the nation.
Yeah.
Because she was nominated, one of 5 people only nominated for the Outstanding Chef Award for this year, and that's a national award. So it was cool to just be in the city. We were with our own little crew. And then we look over and we see Cappy, who does her beverage program, and she's been a previous guest on the show. And we see Eliza, who helped her get her start and get everything kicked off.
Queen of philanthropy.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, but it's like, I've always known that you, Joe, have been a big supporter of food, and Ashley and all that. But it was even that much more endearing to see you a part of her entourage too. It's like, that's right. This isn't like just chefs and bartenders and sommeliers and all that, but it's like her food touches everything, and you as kind of representing music and kind of a separate industry, it made it crossover to, it was like, hell yeah. And we kid around that chefs are kind of rock stars nowadays.
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, Ashley is the lead singer of her own band, without a doubt.
She's a rock star.
Yeah. And it was really cool just to see the camaraderie of everyone hanging out. And even after the whole event was over, of course, Ashley, she didn't take the award, but we alluded to it before. By her being nominated,
that's huge.
Did everything for her and for the community and everything she does. So without being totally cliche, she clearly won for everybody in this state and this area to bring notice of what she does. But we're sitting at the airport. And Vivian Howard and Ben Knight are sitting over here, and the aforementioned Louis Cherry, the architect, he's sitting over here. I think you strolled through, and like everyone's just hanging out. And I kidded around. I said, if this plane goes down, like
it's going down with a whole bunch of people that are
the heart and soul of North Carolina is going with it now. But it was fun just to get out there. And I mean, do you have any like crazy experiences from that weekend with them?
I don't know if I should tell them or not.
Oh, come on.
I got a nickname from that weekend. AC's partner, Caitlin Golan, who is an amazing individual.
Yeah.
Packers fan.
Huge Packers fan. I actually, for a birthday present one year, gave her an Aaron Rodgers signed football.
Wow.
I don't really follow football.
Did she hurl it back to you and say, I'm a Brett Favre fan? And then, like, double fist, like, double pump.
Discount double check.
Double check you right there?
No, she kept it.
I think I saw it in their house the last time I was there.
Yeah.
We met Aaron backstage at a show up in, I think it was
Green Bay.
Yeah, I think it was up in Green Bay. He just happened to, to reach out. He's a fan of the band, and he gave us all this signed merchandise, whatever. And I was like,
I have no idea who you are, but I know somebody who does.
I knew who he was. I'm like, I know a few quarterbacks, but I didn't know what to do with the autographed football because, like, you see our house, it's not really a sports house.
You don't have a room for it with all of the other Duke and UNC stuff you have everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
I'm kidding. There's none of that anywhere.
There is
a platinum album
lots
over
of
here.
albums.
No, you see how this one's like hard to see? I hide all the stuff that I don't.
That is cool. Like your albums and all the memorabilia of the Avett Brothers are just
scattered,
modestly put on the wall.
Wait, so don't get out of it anymore. What's the nickname?
All right, so we went out. We flew in the night before, and my partner in crime, Nick Johnson from Ponysaurus. And the Cookery was there with me, and I was carrying my bags around because I was supposed to stay at Stephanie Izard's house. Who's a chef up in
Stephanie's fantastic, Top Chef fame, and
Girl and the Goat,
Girl and the Goat,
Duck Goat, Little Goat.
We drank many cocktails at her place that night.
Yeah, I even danced with her later in the evening.
Oh, that's right, B-boy style.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to stay with them because I've gotten to be good friends with Gary and Stephanie. Gary, her husband, who does amazing work as well in the beer industry. And so I was carrying my bags around because I was hanging out with Nick, and I was like, where we're going, Monteverde, we had a dinner there. It's close to Stephanie's house, and so I was like, I'm gonna just take my bags with me. It's fine, I'm supposed to stay at their house. In any case, long story short, I ended up somehow in Nick's room, back where AC and them were staying, miles away, but still had my bags with me, fully clothed. I don't remember how I got back there or anything like that. Well, photo evidence shows that we went to like 3 or 4 bars, and at each one I was ordering shots of tequila for the whole crew of like 20 people that was a part of this entourage.
Hell yeah.
We're at a tiki bar in Chicago, and I'm ordering 20 shots of tequila for all these people with straws in them because I was like, it's a tiki bar.
No wonder why you guys weren't there when we got to that tiki bar party.
I think you might have been at Freeport, right? Wasn't that like the place, or
I don't remember.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah. So, anyways, the nickname given to me that night was Tequila Bully. So from thence to be called Tequila Bully.
Oh, Tequila Bully.
Yeah, Tequila Bully.
That sounds like the name of a good brand of tequila coming.
I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been working on this. We got to get some tequila in North Carolina. I mean, you couldn't officially make tequila.
Yeah, in agave spirit.
But yeah,
sure.
Tequila Bully by Joe Kwon.
That's right.
You have this relationship with these great chefs, Ashley Christensen, Stephanie Izard, and probably many more that I'm not. I think you had that probably before you were known as a musician. Where did that come from, and how did you develop these relationships?
No, it actually all started when I met AC. The first person I met when we moved to Raleigh, this is no joke, I had dinner with John T. Edge.
Oh, yeah.
He's not from Raleigh.
Great writer,
Right,
just
great
released
writer,
the Potlicker
Papers.
Yeah. Potlicker Papers, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's amazing human being out of Oxford, Mississippi. Eliza Kraft Olander, Ashley Christensen, and we met at Pools to discuss an auction lot that I was invited to be a part of via Ethan Fogelman at Counterculture Coffee.
Huh.
So that was my first introduction to Raleigh, was having dinner with AC and Eliza and John T. Edge. And if you know anything about Raleigh, knowing AC and Eliza, you will know anyone that you want to know.
Yeah, they know every single person.
They know everybody. And so that was my kind of introduction into this world. And we hit it off. We had a great event, had so much fun. I played music while John T. read a poem at this charity event. It was just fun. And that's how I started meeting chefs across the country, because AC has this pedigree where it's like, oh, well, if AC says you're a friend, you're good with us.
Yeah.
And she just carries that weight. It's a really beautiful thing, because I can say, AC, I'm in Portland, Oregon. What's the name of that dude that we hung out with that one time? And she'll be like texting, hey, remember Joe? You met him at so and so event. He's in Portland. Like,
take care of him.
Yeah, she's just that giving of people, and that people trust her in that way. It's beautiful.
So, A Chef's Life. The opening theme song is the second half of Will You Return?
Yeah.
From the first album that you recorded on, Emotionalism, from 2007. So it's pretty clever to pick a section of a song that's deep into the song. So, meaning, like, if you listen to the beginning of the tune, you have no idea this is the song, because it breaks down. It's a totally different part of the song.
It is. It's the bridge.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem like it ever comes back. I feel like
it's the bridge. Yeah, so that part of the song is actually the part that Will You Return was one of the songs that I was slated to record on that album. And that's actually, it starts the bridge and it goes into the little tiny minuscule solo section.
Yeah.
And then it goes right back into the
the hook, if you will, or the.
It might go into the verse or chorus. It goes into either a verse or a chorus.
Yeah. Well, okay. Now that we're at least talking about music one last time, is anyone that listens to our show, and we had the very next episode after the James Beard Awards was the Thrive NC Festival.
Yeah.
Of which you played live.
Yeah.
And it was Joe, Kwon, and friends.
Yeah. It was nerve-wracking.
So we did a lot of business on Thursday, and then just that was it. Then the next day was more like fun. They're like, if you want to come back, and AC was doing a demonstration.
Was doing a demo,
Vivian did a demonstration earlier. Chidi did a demonstration. You started performing, and you had a pretty cool ensemble. You had Ben Soli, the aforementioned Ben Soli.
Yeah, it was Ben Soli, Neela Pekarak from the Lumineers.
That's right.
Paul DeFiglia, who used to play keys and bass with us. John Tier, Leon Godwin, who got me playing non-classical music. Was that it?
Yeah, and Leon does like a lot of cool videos. And
he's a videographer in Chapel Hill, Mebane area.
I've watched some stuff. Check it out if you haven't seen his stuff. He's got some really cool stuff online.
Yeah, lionnerd.com.
That's right, lionnerd.com. But that was a really cool separation from what you normally do. And so,
totally.
Does that mean we're going to see more of this in the future?
God, I hope not, but I also hope so. It was very nerve-wracking for me because I am very much a support person when it comes to that kind of thing, because I'm not a Ben Soli. Like, Ben can do crazy stuff on the cello and sing, and it blows my mind.
He throws down like Motown
on a cello
and his voice. It's awesome.
It's crazy. Check him out. Yeah, Ben Soli out of Louisville, Kentucky. But it was so fun.
Yeah,
I had so much fun. Sergio Ortega, who
That's right.
was there as well.
He's
from the Dives.
In the Dives, who's
Ramin Karimlou's musical director for his non-Broadway stuff.
Well, and isn't that Paul Stanley's son is the lead singer in the Dives from Kiss?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But I believe he has since left the band.
Ooh, drama. Just kidding.
He might have been kicked out.
Oh, even more drama.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know Sergio is like one of the most talented freaking musicians that you'll come across. He is, and we did Everybody Wants to Rule the World with him, and that was so fun.
Well, and you closed the show with a Neil Young tune.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Cool, and then I was just like recording it because I had this digital recorder with me.
Sure.
And I was like, well, I'm going to do this now, and then I'm going to ask for forgiveness later. I'm recording it, and then I see you with a group of all you guys having fun at Brewery Bavana.
Oh yeah.
Later that night, and I can walk over. I was like, "Hey Joe, I recorded you guys play the last tune of the night. It would be an honor if I could make this the last song of the whole podcast to close it all out." And I don't even know if you remember that it was like
I was
1:30 in the morning.
He made you take a tequila shot right after. He said, "Yes, but you have to do a tequila shot."
I took tequila shots that night
because he's a tequila bullet. Yeah. And so that's the song. That's like that closed the whole podcast.
Cool.
That episode, and it was really special. So. Thank you for being one of the only other musicians to perform on the NCF&B podcast.
One last question for me. Any plans to take your passion for food in some sort of professional sense or beyond?
No,
nothing.
Well, okay. So I'm a part of a transfer company.
Okay. The new food hall opening up later this year.
On Davie and East Street, on the corner of Davie and East Street. I'm part of the artistic team for that. So that's my love of food mixing with my love of aesthetic coming together. But outside of that, I want to help my mom get her kimchi to more people because, and I'm biased, but I think she makes the best kimchi in all the world.
Okay.
Kimchi bully?
Yeah, she's a kimchi bully. No, she's not a bully at all, but
she needs to be a little bit more bullish.
Exactly.
It sounds like it.
She doesn't want to ever sell it. She loves giving it away. I'm like, Mom, you're getting old now. You can probably just sell it.
Well, we can trade some. We can trade some airtime.
She's quite the cook. All the Korean food I know comes from her. She's taught me everything about knife skills. She's the one who taught me about knife skills.
Nice.
But I would love to help bring her product to more people's tables.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the only food-centric thing that I might do. I'd never want to own a restaurant. I never want to run a restaurant or be a part of a restaurant other than a guest ever again.
Any other Korean food in the Triangle that's worth talking about?
Yes, and it's a weird one, and I'm gonna get so much freaking hate mail about this, but
from everybody that's listening.
From all the Koreans that are listening.
There's
a Chinese restaurant
following.
There's a Chinese restaurant in Durham that actually does Korean dishes better than any Korean restaurant in this area.
Whoa.
Yeah.
All right.
It's called China Express.
Express.
It's on the corner of 54 and 55 in Durham, North Carolina.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it here.
That is my favorite Chinese restaurant in the area, though.
I mean, that's the nugget to end on, my friend.
We very much appreciate it, Joe. I know you got to get back on tour. You're headed up to Virginia, and then you're like pretty much gone for weeks on end, and then you maybe get a day to yourself. So fun life as a musician, touring around and all. But we very much appreciate you letting us into your home. And hopefully we will just see you eating at a restaurant near you.
You will.
And,
turn on some Avett Brothers while you're at your next meal.
Watch the documentary.
May It Last. May It Last on HBO. Grab a shot of tequila. Listen to this episode of Joe Kwon, and you will eat and drink extremely merrily.
Guests of the NCF&B podcast receive a swag bag, including gifts from these exceptional North Carolina producers. Social House Vodka, Hungry Harvest, Alley 26 Tonic Syrup, Michael's English Muffins, and Larry's Beans and 42 and Lawrence. Thanks for listening to the NCF&B podcast. I am the voice, Brian Hoyle. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.